I'm a single community owner at a 135 lot community in Dallas, Georgia, so we're up Atlanta, about 20 miles out. Several years ago, it dawned on me that the kids that live in my community weren't doing as well in school as I had hoped they would. So I came up with the idea of what we call the Logan's Crossing Scholarship. My community is named Logan's Crossing. It's turned out to be the very best PR thing I have ever done. We're always in the news. When we make awards, I'm always in the local newspaper. Big pictures, all the names. This year it was actually picked up by one of the national guys, and I had a lot of people contact me from all over the country saying, hey, tell me about your scholarship program, etc. So I'm going to give you the 2-second summary. We encourage the kids to go to school, because if they don't go to school, they can't learn. And so any kid that in my community that has 100% attendance, I give them $50 at the end of the year. And in Georgia, we have a thing called a Hope Scholarship. So any kid that graduates high school with a B average basically gets to go to college for free. They get full tuition and books for free. So in order to encourage kids to make good grades, if they're in high school, if they have a B average at the end of the year, then I give them $250. And in giving them the biggest year I ever had, it cost me about $5,000. Typically, it's about $2,000 a year. And as I say, all the things that I've done to try to make my community stand out, to have it respected by the local politicians, the local Chamber of Commerce, the Builders Association, et cetera, et cetera. This is really the best thing I ever did. So I share that with you. If you'd like more details, I'll give you my business card and send me an email, and I'll respond with some information.
Excellent. The Ron Cobb Foundation.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I was just wondering if anybody had ever experienced a situation where another community had come into your community and bought a home from a resident, a private sale, if you will, and then pulled that home out of your community. We're supposed to be a pretty cohesive group here, working with each other in tandem. And I'm just wondering if you all have experienced that, and if you have, how you've dealt with that.
Who's had that happen in their community? Just curious. So we've got what, 10%?
Steve, if you want me to answer,
Yes,
and I'll throw out an answer. Once it's done, of course. We have had success before with a private purchaser buys the home to move to their land. We've had success in sort of buying it back for them for a quick profit, a couple $1,000s overpayment to keep it in there. But to avoid that, what we try to do locally in our communities, I have several different areas where I have communities, we try to go out and see the local managers, even of the big communities, and we go in once a year maybe, or a little bit less, and say, we're doing our rent surveys, and I'm coming in and I want to tell you my rents, because I know your boss is going to ask you. So we volunteer what our rents are, we ask them about their rents, but we volunteer our information first. But then we also say, if anybody wants to move into your community from ours, we're going to tell you honestly how they performed, and we'd like you to do the same to us. And then you also address that you don't want poaching, you want to be community. So you kind of be proactive to know your neighbors, to know your other community managers, and then it won't happen as often.
And something I'd like to add that too. From the old days, let's say prior to 2000, there were a lot of operators that thought that they could get something for nothing. And that was readily apparent throughout the industry. You get repos that were 4 years old for $3,000 or $4,000 because there were so many all over the place. My point is this: you need to be fair to your residents who sell them homes. You can't sit there and try to squeeze them because you think you've got them, they're in your property. You need to be able to give them a fair price for their home. You got to understand, all of us know it's probably a $5,000 minimum, worth up more to us than the other guy down the street because he's got to tear it down and move it. So I would make sure you let your residents know and be fair to them. Give them a fair price for their home. Don't just try to pay them a couple grand and say you can leave. That's where I've known a couple operators that have bought from other properties, and I always say, why didn't the owner buy it? Well, he was trying to squeeze them out down low, and I gave him a fair price. So just be careful with that.
My manager is licensed as a salesperson, and residents know that as soon as they want to sell, she'll list that home and advertise it and get it sold, either to us or to somebody else that will keep it on the park. So that's one idea. Okay, so my question is that about 5 or 6 years ago, I hired a manager. After checking her out with her previous employer, fine, she was fine. They sold the park that she was involved in. There were 2 managers, and they kept the other one, and for some of the property, and everything was fine. And she ended up, she stole quite a bit of money from us. She was telling residents that for the first 90 days, new residents, for the first 90 days, they were on probation and had to pay with cash. And of course, you know where that cash went. And because she knew that I tended to visit the property about every 90 days because I'm across the country, and she would time it to my visit. So, and, oh, it's a new resident, they're starting to pay. They weren't on the books yet. Other employers cannot tell us what, the problems with an employee, why they left, their conditions. It also turned out that she had left her last employer when she was arrested. The police actually came into the park and arrested her for breaking and entering her ex-husband's home. How can you find out about the background of somebody when, by law, they can get sued if they disclose why a person left?
You can call up the former employer and simply ask relative to that person, would you hire them again?
I did ask.
And what'd you say?
Yes.
Well, she's a liar until she's no help to you, is she?
Well, they get sued if they're...
Not with that answer they can. All you're saying is, you're not asking what they did wrong, you're simply saying, would you hire them again? Now, if she said yes, you're dead in the water. I just want to ask, from a networking point of view, if there's a Matthew Braun, or Don, last name starts with a B. I'm supposed to meet both of those guys sometime this morning, so here I am. I don't know where you are.
It's us.
Okay.
To answer your question about the checking out employees, I've read the same thing. Actually, it's a long story short, but I actually had a gentleman who had a false identity, if you want to call it. He masqueraded himself as a retired military officer, and he had convinced the entire community. And he had convinced the federal government because they asked him to come and give a speech at one of the Ranger graduations. It's like it was a movie almost thing, and this gentleman knows exactly what I'm talking about. And as it turns out, believe it or not, he's now sitting in prison because he supposedly murdered his father 12 years ago, before he worked for me. But anyway, but I did eventually go and check out his background. You can get, if somebody works for you, it's just like you go for a job interview anywhere else. You can get a background check. Now, what you got to be careful is their credit and all that. What you're looking for is felonies, things like that. They may be lying on application. I also recommend, I do this in a lot of my other asset class properties, I put cameras everywhere. And today's technology is wonderful. I've got cameras in all my offices, so if I want to know if a manager's there or not, I can check. I can also look, and it's videotaped during motion and everything. If I have any suspicious transactions, for instance, a resident comes in you're concerned about, or they pay cash, whatever, you can see it. And I tell my employees that I'm doing it for their own protection. And it's highly advertised everywhere. Hey, 24-hour video surveillance. That's another avenue you can use. They're not that expensive, the cameras and all that. Yeah, the initial install I put 16 cameras in a property somewhere around 10, 11,000. I promise you it's worth it. So that's another thing you can do.
If they sign a consent saying that you can release all my criminal information, all my employee information, If the person just like deployment verification, if I sign something saying, I give you permission to check all my previous employment, the employer can say anything, that guy was a thief, that guy was a drunk, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you just have to make sure that they sign it. I think so.
A couple of thoughts on, we do a lot of remote management, and so if you have a park and you have a manager on the field somewhere, we've got challenges on that, but like talking about people, the lengths they'll go to do things. I had a manager that actually went so far as to set up a private fake flooring company with letterhead and the whole thing, and would submit invoices for units. I mean, it was an elaborate thing. And the way we found it was through an auditing procedure. So if you're doing remote managing, the auditing of both the vacants and the materials are going in a key thing. The other thing that you might, it's something I just heard about recently, and I just thought I'd share. If you have rentals, which most of us, as we pick up park-owned homes when we renovate and then we end up with rentals, there's kind of a new thing going on with service pets. And you might want to be aware of it. Just shared with me recently, I know a guy who's an apartment manager, and he said it's happened in 3 different cities in the country, where the tenant goes all the way through the leasing process and then shows up with their dog, and the dog's doesn't have a test, doesn't have anything, and they go, hey, what's with the pet? Well, it's a service animal. And the manager asks, where's the certification? Apparently, that's a violation of HUD. So if you don't know that, if your managers don't know that, and immediately it's a law firm that's doing it, and they just have people employed going around doing that, and it's kind of like the ADA wheelchair scam thing, and that's a big thing in California. So just to be aware of what, and you might check with your attorney what you can and can't ask. At least what we were told is that apparently you can ask for the letter from the doctor, but you can't ask to see that the pet is indeed a certified service animal, and so there's an issue there that just to be aware of, because it's like a $1,500 shakedown for that. They'll walk away for $1,500. That's sort of the market rate. So I just thought I'd share that.
More questions on due diligence as we're looking at new parks and run into lagoon septic systems, standard septic systems, and other non-city service, including well systems, and people's advice on how to either run away from or how to handle various types of non-traditional public service utility systems.
Well, it's a good question. We're going to have a panel this afternoon, and there's a gentleman, I don't see him here, his name's Cole Phillips, that's going to be on that panel. He and his father are very, very familiar with septic systems, with sewage treatment plants, stuff like that. So you'll see him when he comes up here. He's coming up this afternoon, so he's a good person to talk to about that.
What I'd say for that is that in all of those scenarios, there are good systems and there are bad systems. So if you're a new person to the industry or you don't know anything about a well and what's required to provide the water, or you don't know how to service a private sewer plant, all those things make a new purchase more difficult. And the so-called experts out there sometimes say for investors, don't make your first investment the hardest one to succeed at. So if you can get city water and city sewer, life is easier. But if you find a property that has these other characteristics, it requires extra due diligence to make sure they're all working properly and they're compliant with the rules. And then you have to understand that you're going to have to spend time and money to keep them maintained. And so you don't have to avoid them, but it's just an extra layer of risk. That's how we summarize it. But our session, you're right after lunch, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right after lunch.
That's right after lunch, the session on, it's a very good session, particularly for people that are all of a sudden, you leave today and say, hey, I got to fill up my park. I got these 10 empty lots. Well, You might not have done that for the last 10 years, and this session is to say, all right, you got the money, you got the enthusiasm, but step back, let's look at the pitfalls you're gonna run into that might cause you a week's delay or a big financial headache. That's what that session right after lunch is going to cover today.
Exactly. Got time for one more question, and then we're going to allow Mark to come on up and start the auxiliary service panel. Okay. Kirk here? What's for that? Kirk Kelly?
Let's just thank the group again before we start in the 9 o'clock session. We thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
It's been a great first day.
Right, great first day. Just a quick question, I don't want any commitments, but how many folks here are going to leave probably buying some homes?
Buying some homes.
Buying homes or
Probably buying some homes, maybe from some of these manufacturers. Okay, good. It looks like at least 15 or 20. That's awesome. There's been years past where nobody's raised their hands, so that's great. Does anybody have a shortage of being able to find funds to buy homes? Just curious. Okay. Just one.
that's good.
Okay, all you finance folks. Oh, see, Kurt, right there.
And continue to share your comments with the planning group here, if we can improve things. I know you're voting, texting your
I
communities.
just want to make an announcement about breakfast.